Hey y'all, Justin here from Moon Acres. It's the middle of the day, heat of the day, and it is too hot to work on my shed project anymore. So I decided let's do a garden tour. I've been wanting to do this for a while, and now I can show you guys what's going on with that. It's been a lot of work. About 7 months ago, everything that you see behind me wasn't here. No fence, no garden, no nothing. So we've really been working our butt off, and we're super proud of how everything has come out this spring and summer. And we're going to start getting ready for fall too. We'll share that with you as well, our preparation there. But for the time being, let's just go on a stroll and check it out. So right behind me, the first thing I like to point out is our little chicken wire fence that I made. We've got dogs and cats and everything else, all sorts of wildlife around here. So I wanted to deter them from getting into the garden as much as possible. So I put this up, and unfortunately 2 of our dogs are like pro wrestlers and started using it like the ropes in a wrestling ring, and basically knocked over and bent like 15 of these T-posts. So I had to replace those, and I did it with a little bit of a grudge. So I installed an electric fence here on the bottom as well, so that they'd hit that and hopefully get the idea that Dad doesn't want them using this like their personal wrestling ring. So that worked really well for a time or two. Unfortunately, one of the dogs ate the plug off of the end of the power cord, so it's down at the moment, but we'll get another cord. That's an easy fix, and we'll show them who's boss. So we'll go over kind of the construction of that maybe in a different video, but nothing too difficult. You could get solar panel ones. This one just happens to be a plug-in. It was like a lot cheaper, so we went with that because I knew it would probably get destroyed one way or another. But anyway, not too bad. That's an easy fix. So we'll go on into the garden here. In our first bed, we planted some amaranth. This is Love Lies Bleeding amaranth. We got it from Baker Creek, and I just basically did a big plot of this, just free sowed it into the ground, and when they started coming up, I just picked the seedlings out of the soil and placed them around the garden wherever I had some free spots. So it's been really good for the bees and the butterflies, and yeah, we'll kind of till them up, maybe throw them in the compost, use them in some way to give back to the garden. But they're starting to bloom, and they've been really pretty. You'll see them as we walk around. These sunflowers here, my daughter had to plant those for a school project back in I guess May, and these guys are just massive right now, so they're pretty much just collapsing under their own weight. But we've got 3 other varieties of sunflowers in the garden. I can't remember the name of all of them off the top of my head, but I'll think about that and maybe put them in the comments below, what each variety of our plants are. Now, with that being said, make sure that you're checking with your local extension office and picking out plants that are good for your area, because what we have here might not do so well wherever, if you're in a different zone or different locations. So just take that into consideration. But this was our cucumber patch, but we got worn out by cucumber beetles this summer, and that was a huge bummer. So we basically just wiped those out, and I put some flowers in there. We've also got blueberries planted in there intermittently, but they're going to take a long time to get going. So we just kind of plant things around them, maybe even reconsider if this is going to be a blueberry patch or not. So our next garden, our next raised bed here, this one has our peppers, or some of our peppers. It is split into half with jalapeno on this side, and these are some hot peach peppers from Baker Creek that we got this year, and they've been really interesting. A really high producer. I've done a lot with dehydrating them, fermenting them, using them in different kind of pickling stuff, and so those have been pretty neat, fun little experiment. But this is really all we planned on for peppers this year. But of course I went to the store and I picked up a pack of assorted hot peppers. It didn't say what any of them were, and so I sprouted a bunch of those and then put them all in my buckets around the garden. I think I started off with about 20 or something. I'm not sure how many we have now, but they've been a lot of fun. It's just kind of a new surprise once those things get going, and seeing how they ripen up and the different stages that they have. So these container gardens that we made, they're basically 2x10s stacked 2 high, and then they are secured with a 4x4 post in the corner, and that's it. I didn't bury the post or do anything like that. Basically just made some boxes real quick, and our neighbors were good enough to bring over their tractor, and I also rented a excavator, and we had a big old pile of dirt on the property, and so we just wore that thing out one weekend and got all these filled up. It wasn't easy, and I was really surprised how much dirt actually went into these. So before you make some Mongo garden like we did, really plan it out, make sure you've got a good source of soil, because that's something else we've had to learn this year, is just taking care of soil from something raw that's been sitting out in the middle of a field that's really poor quality to getting it up to this kind of standard. So it's been a lot of work. We'll do something else on that later, but man, we were not used to it. Back in Tennessee, we had access to compost from the dump, and boy, that was just such a gift. But this has been interesting, and it's a new way to kind of start farming from scratch. So we've enjoyed learning our lessons one way or another. But from those two beds, we'll go over here, and these are our tomatoes that we've got, and we just did the cattle panels like you see all over the place, and it was really great. At the beginning of summer, they got about this tall, and then all of a sudden it got real hot consistently, and they didn't do anything. They just sat there. We've had, I think, 1 or 2 tomatoes up to this point, and that's a big change for us as well, because we're used to a zone that's a little further north, and the summer stayed relatively cool, but when it gets hot enough, tomatoes will stop fruiting. So I think next year we're going to plant these in some shade or come up with some kind of cover, because they've taken up a lot of space for a bunch of months just sitting here doing nothing, and that gets kind of frustrating. So we'll plan that one out a little bit better. We've learned a lot. This is our first year here in this zone, so everything's kind of been a grand experiment, but we're real happy. We've had some cooler weather, and they're starting to fruit again, and so we're really looking forward to these ripening up. We've got blue tomatoes and black tomatoes. Tomatoes are kind of one of those fun things that you just, every year we do some kind of weird different variety, whether it's an heirloom or whatever, but they're their own beast for sure. So they've been fun getting going. So they go all the way down here, and then we have our arches. It looks like some beans have crept in, but these are pumpkins that you see hanging from the arches. And I had somebody tell me it wasn't possible, that you couldn't grow pumpkins from a trellis. But last year we had a volunteer pumpkin come through our chain link fence, and so it gave me the idea that yeah, you could pretty much trellis anything. So let's go check that out. Now, one of the things with our arches is that we're growing a lot of squash, a lot of heavy winter squash. So we've had to use a lot of pantyhose to secure those things and keep them from falling, because there's super high winds here where we are, and it can really do a number. But anyway, there's our first pumpkin of the season. It's just been coming along beautifully. We've got another one on top of the trellis here. Looks like it's gonna get a little butt crack or something as it grows, but you know, hey, nothing wrong with character. So that one I didn't put in pantyhose because it's fairly supported, but we've got another one here. And one thing too you'll see with the squash is we had some powdery mildew a couple weeks ago, because it all of a sudden got real cool and rained a whole bunch. So I've pretty much slacked off on watering. I'm checking the soil each day before I decide to water to see what the moisture content is. And these beds have been awesome because they hold a lot of water, but I also realized I was probably over watering a little too much at the beginning there, because I kept having some issues with sort of weird funguses and things like that. But we do pretty much everything organically. I don't even really like using neem oil unless I have to, and if I do, it's going to be at nighttime, so hopefully I'm not messing up pollinators or anything like that, as they're out here just trying to do their jobs too. But it's been cool. We've used beneficial nematodes, we've used praying mantis, lacewings, all that stuff, and it's kind of been a little science experiment. So hopefully our soil though, and just our general population of good beneficial creatures is going to be a lot better next year, and I'm really looking forward to that. So our basil has gone completely crazy. You can see that down here. We've got Thai basil and sweet basil, but I love the way it smells, and it brings in so many different pollinators, and it's just fun to have around. So we let that kind of hang out after it bolted, and it's just a pretty addition. I also got a whole bunch of sweet potato vines on sale at the local store because they were just trying to get rid of them. And so you'll see these. I just loaded them out everywhere because sweet potatoes are cool. We're all about food that's going to store for a long time. So you see these spaghetti squash, and we got butternut squash back there. We've got so many, and we're looking forward to just having those all winter long. That's sort of the name of the game. If it doesn't have a really great purpose, then we're probably not going to grow it. Now, with that being said, I've got like 8 million pepper plants, and for some reason it's just a problem I have. I do it every year, but everything else kind of has its place. So going through our beans, these have been really great. They just started producing like last week, because I guess like tomatoes, they're the same thing. They really don't like the real hot direct sun, the hot weather. And so now it's cooling down just a few degrees, they're starting to just bump beans out, and that's great because we love eating those things. We've got our okra as well. These are a spineless Clemson okra, if I remember correctly. And they've been really good. Again, now that it's starting to cool down, they're producing a little bit more and growing a little more. With that being said, though, this basil kind of helps shade them through the real hot parts of the summer. And so we still have pretty good okra production there. We've been canning those things and pickling those like crazy. Oh, I almost forgot our watermelons too. These guys are hiding out here. But they've been going kind of all summer long. We're waiting on those to finish up. I guess just like with squash, this part, when it starts getting dry and brown looking, it's when they are ready to go. We've got some little musk melons over here as well. And one of these fell off a little early, and we got to try it, and oh man, it was so good. So we've got a few of those around in the garden as well, and those have been good. Hopefully they keep producing a little bit longer because they're just delicious. And I went a little crazy with the sunflowers this year, just because we're in the middle of America, and you know, you see a lot of those. I guess it's kind of a typical thing for the Plains states, and man, they just love it. They've exploded. They're doing great. I believe this one is a teddy bear, if I remember correctly. It's either that or that one. They're probably the same, I don't know. But we've got a couple others in there. Again, I can't remember all the names of them. But this is where I planted, just free sowed the amaranth basically right here, and then put a whole bunch of sunflowers. I really like overloading spaces with plants, and then you can always remove them or move them somewhere else if you don't have the space, but at least you've got them. So I'd rather have them than not. But those are beautiful. They're doing really good, bringing in a lot of good pollinators. We've got some more over here too, and kind of more of the same, more okra, sunflowers. I've really gotten into mixing plants up because there are so many pests here, so many just bad insects that show up all of a sudden like a horde. And if everything is in one spot, man, it's gone. They're going to wear it out. But if you plant things in different locations, they might get part of it, but they're not going to get all of it. And so that's something we learned this year, because we didn't have nearly the amount of bad insects that are around here. Now, with that being said, like right now, there's grasshoppers everywhere. But I'm kind of leaving those guys alone, hoping to bring the birds in. Every now and then I feel a little mean, and I grab one and I'll go throw them at the chickens, and that's kind of fun actually. But for the most part, we're trying to bring this into like full circle of being a kind of ecosystem that takes care of itself. It seems like a lot of work, but it's actually because I'm a slacker and I've got so many other things to do. If this garden is more self-sustainable, then that's better for us. So that's kind of the idea, and the same idea too with overloading the spaces with all these plants. If you crowd out everything else, you're not going to get a lot of weeds, and that's a good thing too, because man, that's just so much work. But we still have to weed, and I just kind of do a little bit as we go, and that has been fine. We had a really small garden last year that was like it was maybe a 12 by 8, and that thing felt like it was more work than this was, just because these are elevated. It's so much easier to access and work with. There's the guard dogs over there. They got to tell everybody about it. But one thing, almost missed our eggplant. Our eggplant have been jamming out this year. These are an early type of eggplant, and they're more narrow than they are like your traditional big old fatties, and they just pump them out left and right. So We've Jade made some baba ganoush over the weekend, and we're still eating that. That was really good. Eggplant are a really fun one if you're into kind of like ethnic foods and stuff. But they've been good. We fried them, air fried them, baked them, you name it. So those are fun, and they're not. This variety doesn't seem like it's very bitter either. So you don't have to worry about sweating them as much, even though we still do for the most part. But they've been good. I like those. Next year I think we'll do some bigger ones though, just so it's more bang for the buck, less skin, more meat. Let's see, we've got a different variety of sweet potato down on the ground here with some amaranth coming through, and then more spaghetti squash. These are all pantyhosed up. As you can see, it's really awkward when I have to go to Walmart and ask the lady working the lingerie section like the difference in if these are like full-size pantyhoses or legging. I don't know. I usually start off with I'm a gardener, and that seems to be okay. So but yeah, we've gone through probably 10 or 12 pairs of pantyhose, just securing everything up so it doesn't get knocked down by the wind. There's a few that I've missed, and then we've had a few casualties too, but you know, that's the way it goes. So, and then we've got more butternut over here, and these guys, they're just pretty much played out. I guess this is part of the powdery mildew stuff. I've sprayed it with neem oil a couple times, and it seems to kind of stop. And then I've slowed down the watering like I was talking about, and that's helped out a lot too. So we'll see if the rest of the plant keeps going or what. But oh yeah, this is the Wilson of the garden, except he's kind of creepy. I'll be okay to see Wilson go. But anyway, to a point, we kind of look around and we're like, dude, we've got so many squash, we really don't need any more. And so if they die off, that's fine. And I think we're going to be pretty set. So just sort of the natural cycle of things. The cucumbers as well, they got hit with those cucumber beetles, but at another point too, they were just jamming out, and then they just kind of stopped. So I think at the end of their life cycle, they get weak and a little more susceptible to things because it's kind of their time to go. But that's life, isn't it? One failure I did have, or maybe it was just because I didn't try hard enough here, is this yellow squash. I couldn't get it to come up the trellis, but it seems pretty happy, and it's had a lot of space there. Yellow squash will take over the world if you're not careful about it, or summer squash, I should say. But we've got 3 plants here, and they are kind of taking over some pepper plants, but I kind of don't care because I'm about peppered out. But we've got a few more bell peppers. Need to probably come out tonight and pick some of those. They're getting pretty fat. And let's see, we had bok choy in here, but we sort of thinned that out. It's growing back because, or not bok choy, Swiss chard. We had Swiss chard in here, but we're about Swiss chard out. So that's sort of doing its thing, coming back, and I think it will stick around till fall. And then we've got a couple zucchini plants that are getting pretty big, and they've sort of had some powdery mildew issues too, but they seem to be getting better and are unaffected. I'm seeing a lot of people online with vine borer beetle issues, and I haven't seen anything our way yet. So maybe that's one plus side, is we're a little out of their zone right now, but I'm sure eventually they'll show up and just wear everything out. But that's okay, because we're okay with that zucchini kind of being gone. We're ready to start getting our fall plants in and direct sowing. We do need it to drop down in temperature just a little bit more, because we're still hitting like high 90s, 100 every now and then, but we're pretty close to fall, so hopefully that's just right around the corner. Anyway, tons of stuff. I'm sure I probably walked right by some things and missed it, but if you got any questions, hit me up. And yeah, thanks for coming along. We're really super proud and ready to just share all of our hard work with you, and maybe hopefully inspire some of you guys to start up and get going. I think if you're not gardening or preserving food or getting ready for kind of leaner times, you really should be, because it's kind of scary right now. So that was a big motivation for us just to get off our butts and get it going. It was a lot of hard work, but man, it has paid off just tenfold, and it's a resource we will always have, hopefully. So get started today, and hopefully that will pay off for you pretty soon. But we'll do some more videos on how to plant a garden, getting ready for different seasons, when and how to do that. We're kind of learning too as we go, so it's sort of the fun part. We're in that learning mode, but they say if you want to learn something, teach it. So here we are. But thanks, y'all. We'll talk to you later, and hit me up. Remember to like, subscribe, share, do all that good stuff to spread the word about Moon Acres Homestead here, because we're just having too fun of a time to not share this with you guys. So thanks, and we'll see you later. Cheers.